Okay, good morning, everyone. I declare the council meeting CO25/2 open and welcome everyone here. Please note this meeting is being live streamed and the consequences of that. I shall start with our karakia. Whakatau, Maiti Wara, Whakawate, Maiti Hinanaro, Whakarite, Maiti Tinana, Ki ai ngā mahi. Ai. We all seem to be here today, so no apologies needed. And under consideration of late items, I would just note the additional tabled items in addition to the existing reports. Declarations of interest. Does anyone have a conflict of interest they need to declare? No? Okay. There are no public excluded items and there's no public forum that I've been made aware of. So we'll move into the first item, which is just to confirm the minutes of the council meeting on the 5th of November. So I have a mover and seconder to confirm those, please. Councillor Ray and Councillor Sol. I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. So now moving on to the reports, which is starting off with the declaration of members who didn't manage to do it on the 5th. So first up, I'm going to call John Clements to make and attest his declaration for the Katikati Community Board. So if you'd like to join me at the front.
Declaration by member, John Clements declares that I will faithfully and impartially and according to the best of my skills and judgment, execute and perform in the best interests of the Kerikeri community, the power, authorities and duties vested in me or imposed upon me as a member of the Kerikeri Community Board. By virtue of the Local Government Act of 2002, the Local Government Official Information and Meeting Act of 1987, or any other act. Dated on in Tauranga, this 25th of November 2025.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay, I'd now like to call upon Councillor Murray Bench to come and do her declaration. So this first one is for council and then we'll do the community board one just afterwards.
Thank you. I, Margaret Murray Bench, declare that I will faithfully and impartially and according to the best of my skill and judgment execute and perform in the best interest of the Western Bay of Plenty District Council the powers, authorities and duties vested in or imposed upon me as member of the Western Bay of Plenty District Council by virtue of the Local Government Act 2002, the Local Government Official Information and Meetings Act 1987, or any other act, dated at Tauranga on the 25th of November 2025.
Congratulations.
Thank you, James.
Okay, the next one is for the Omokura Kaimai Community Board. So, Margaret.
Right. I, Margaret Murray Benge, declare that I will faithfully and impartially and according to the best of my skill and judgment execute and perform in the best interests of the Omokura Kaimai community the powers, authorities and duties vested in or imposed upon me as a member of the Omokura Kaimai Community Board. By virtue of the Local Government Act 2002, the Local Government Official Information and Meetings Act 1987, or any other act, dated at Tauranga on the 21st day of November 2025. Thank you.
Thank you. Would you like to say a few words?
I have done this before, made my declaration, but I want to say that I am very proud to be a member of this council. I think the council, the community has returned to us very fine councillors, and I look forward to working with you and with staff, and you particularly, Mayor James, in this coming term. We have much to do and we have much responsibility, and I know that we'll all do it to the very best of our ability. We have fine staff, we've got to make sure we get the best out of them, and at the same time know that the community needs us to be forceful and not demanding, but engaging with them as best of our ability. So thank you very much. I'm delighted with this result. Thank you.
Thank you, Margaret. All the best.
Thanks, James.
So I'll now call upon Tracy Coxhead to make and attest her declaration. Come forward, Tracy.
You're going to give it to me. Thank you. I, Tracy Coxhead, declare that I will faithfully and impartially and according to the best of my skill and judgment execute and perform in the best interest of Western Bay of Plenty District the powers, authorities and duties vested in or imposed upon me as a member of the Western Bay of Plenty District Council. By virtue of the Local Government Act 2002, the Local Government Official Information and Meetings Act 1987, or any other act, dated at Tauranga this 25th day of November 2025.
So now we'll ask you to make an attest your declaration for the Omokura Kaimai Community Board.
I, Tracy Coxhead, declare that I will faithfully and impartially and according to the best of my skill and judgment execute and perform in the best interests of Omokura Kaimai community the powers, authorities and duties vested in or imposed upon me as a member of the Omokura Kaimai Community Board. By virtue of the Local Government Act 2002, the Local Government Official Information and Meetings Act 1987, or any other act, dated at Tauranga this 25th day of November 2025. Yeah.
So I invite Tracy to say a few words if you would like to.
I'm not going to be able to match Margaret Murray Benge's speech. Totally unprepared am I. However, I echo the same view as Margaret. We have a fantastic council this term. And I'm extremely grateful to be part of it and to have been re-elected by our community. So thank you to the community. And also thank you to all of you turning up this morning to hear us being sworn in particular my beautiful family. Thank you so much. Yeah, really looking forward to this term. So excellent. Thank you.
Okay, so we're moving on to page 27 now for item 10.3, which is the proposal for lessee to include cafe operations within lease agreement at Bowentown Beach Holiday Park. And I'll call Kerry Little to introduce this one. She's in. No? Okay. Brad, I'll hang you up.
Kia ora, councillors. Today you have a paper in front of you that we've had a request from the Bowentown Holidays Limited to set up a cafe on their premises, and that requires council approval to allow them to do that. The report I will take as read in terms of the requirements, and I'm happy to answer any questions on this.
Any questions from councillors? No? Oh, okay. Councillor Joyce has moved. Is there a second in place? Councillor Sol. Any debate on this one? Deputy Mayor Murray Bench.
I just think that this is really good news for the wider community, and I'm pleased that someone is prepared to take the risk, because cafes don't always pay their way. But in this case, I think Bowentown people will be very pleased. Thank you.
Councillor Sol.
Yes, thank you. I totally support this as well. It's actually an opportunity for a local business to offer more to the visitors and the inhabitants of Waihi Beach, Bowentown, etc. And I think it is something that will just add to our future. These people that work quite hard in these camping grounds, etc., and then to take on food as well. They need all the praise they can get to take it on, and I wish them the best.
Thank you. Sorry, I should have acknowledged. Is it Mike and Sean? Great. Okay. So the owners are here. Operators are here with us. So, did you want to say anything in addition, or don't have to? No. Better go to the mic.
Firstly, I'd just like to acknowledge and thank everybody for hearing and receiving the submission. Obviously it means a lot to us to hear votes of support as well straight off the bat. So we're looking forward to this sort of new little chapter, and hopefully we can get everything moving pretty quickly and get the boxes checked off.
Great. Okay. Well, thank you for that. So if there's no, Councillor Beach.
Yeah, thank you. Look, I certainly support this venture. I take my hat off to any people trying to start up a new business and get things going in this climate. The hospitality and that sort of trade is a hard one to get into. So I wish you all the best of luck with that, and I'm sure it's going to be a great asset for the Waihi and surrounding area.
Thank you. Councillor Coxhead.
I really enjoyed reading your submission, and I really liked the flavour of that and your commitment to, like providing holidays for families that are affordable and all the rest of it. So very much in favour of what you're doing in terms of adding the cafe as well. So thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, so without any further speakers, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Thank you very much. Good to have you here and
Thank you.
okay, moving on to item 10.4 on page 54, but also noting the various tabled items. So I'll call on Jonathan and Matt to come and introduce this one, please.
Good morning, councillors. If we could bring up those slides, please. So this morning we're going to present to you the annual report for 24-25. So we've been working with audit since our September draft was presented to you on the 4th of September. We do have some table changes that have been noted as well, and we will go through those shortly. But I will start when the slides come up with some highlights of the year. Thank you. So just stepping through some of the highlights of the year and the numbers that are in the annual report. So the actual revenue achieved for the year is 201.9 million. Excuse me. That's against a budget of 195.9. 52% of our revenue is rates revenue, and that aligns within what we had forecast in the budget. 27% of that is subsidies and grants. Of the subsidies and grants, that's 55 million against a budget of 60. And of that 55 million, 25 million of it comes from the National Infrastructure Funding and 22 from Waka Kotahi. So those are our big capital programs which contribute income into the total pool in the annual report. From an expenditure perspective, so our actual total expenditure across council is 149 million against budget of 140.3 million.
Jonathan, I think that's Councillor Joyce. Do you have a question? I think we all probably ought to go page by page, otherwise we'll get confused.
That's the previous page, if I could. So subsidies and grants being down a bit, is that because of the reduced NZTA funding?
So against budget, that's lower. So that's just timing of completion of capital projects compared to where we budgeted them.
Right, because we had the reduction in NZTA funding. Was that already in the budget, was it?
Yes, so that's already included in the budget in that 3-year program. Yes.
Deputy Mayor Murray Bench.
Could I ask that national infrastructure funding, does that include the shovel ready for Pole Road, or was that the previous year?
I would have to dive deeper into projects, but the national infrastructure was previously the Crown Infrastructure Partners named, so it's rechanged its name, but in terms of the Pole Road project, I can come back to you on that, but I don't have.
Right, and the same for the roundabout at Amokoro, the funding for that came from, yes.
Infrastructure acceleration.
Infrastructure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Make it seem legal.
Councillor Coxon.
Just a question around the Heron Crescent subsidy. So can you just remind me how much that was? Do you have that? And when was it received? Presumably at the end of the project, I would have thought. But...
So some of those subsidies are received through milestones throughout the project.
Right,
there were two
okay.
different subsidies for that. One was received from the Ministry of Housing and Urban Development. And the second one, sorry, the second one I don't have split out in front of me at the moment.
Okay, no, that's fine. If you just let us know later, that would be good.
We can find that and circle back.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay, I don't see any other questions, so do carry on, Jonathan.
So just touching on what makes up some of our total expenditure. So against budgets, our personnel costs were down compared to budget by 462,000. And finance costs, with the benefit of lower interest rates, were down 464,000. On the other side of the scale, depreciation and amortization was higher with a higher asset base, and our other expenditure was also higher by 8.9 million. Other expenditure for the year, so it is a big number, so it's 78.5 gets pulled into that other expenditure category, of which 43.5 million is maintenance costs. And maintenance costs for the year were 4.2 million above. So that's a big part of our business in that space, and there was some increased costs as we previously discussed. Just at a high level, looking at across the statements. So the revenue less the expenditure gives us a net surplus of 52 million for the year against a budget of 55.5. Our external borrowings are 176.3 versus a budget of 179.4. That external borrowings number also includes the interest accrued. So we're required to include the interest against that number as well. The actual drawdowns themselves are 175 million even. And net operating cash flows is a cash inflow of 76.4 against a budget of 82. And a big chunk of that operating inflows are those subsidies that we previously talked about, the money coming into council. Then of the money coming in, there was a very large capital program in the financial year of 138 million of cash outflows, investing in property, plant and equipment against a budget of 126.2.
John had a question from Councillor Daly.
Jonathan, back to that previous slide, sorry. The maintenance that was above budget by 4.2 million. I'm picking, you may not know exactly what that was for, but was this related to the failure of the grinder pumps in Makatu?
A lot of it was street berms and grass. So there was 2 or 3 in that space, 2 or 3 million in that space. When we break it down, the maintenance has got about 30 or 40 categories when we go down to a posting code level. But street berms and maintenance of those in that space.
Sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
So in that maintenance category, we've got about 30 or 40 posting codes, so categories of expenses. One of the big movers in that space was the additional expenditure on streets and berms during the year. So that's our trees and that's our mowing and looking after those. So that comes under that maintenance code.
Streets and berms.
Yeah, street berms and trees, sorry.
Right, carry on.
So councillors, just on the next slide, as Jonathan's talked about, probably two key things there to take note of in terms of from a performance perspective. We've managed to deliver $13 million more capital works than had initially been budgeted. Some opportunities were taken for timing improvement, yet our external borrowings are actually lower than what we had anticipated. So that's actually whilst they're big numbers, it is a good news story.
Thanks, Matt.
Just touching on the changes since the 4th of September draft. So there's been a fair bit of work with ourselves and with audit just to get to this final position over the past couple of months. We've noted those key changes in a table, and that was provided on one of the documents attached to the agenda. I'm just noting that of the revenue expenditure, a lot of them are classification changes. So there was some rates remission of 1.1 million. That's a majority of the classification between A and B. So it was a classification from the doubtful debts where the rates remission previously was into the revenue bucket itself, which reduced both the revenue and the expenditure in that category. We also were able to recognise our LGFA revaluation gains of 0.7 million into revenue over the last 3 months, where we've now received that information from LGFA and been able to revalue those shares and our investment in them. One further change to note since the agenda was published last week is that we have made a further reclassification in note 6 in subsidies and grants. So in the NZTA Waka Kotahi line, the 22,608 million was previously shown as 23.4 million. So it's a movement of 820,000 from that line down to the other line. So there was an amount in there incorrectly showing as part of the NZTA line.
Councillor Daly had a question.
Jonathan, the 1.1 million rates remission, would you say there's a trend on the rates remission, or is that about average? Like, is it trending upwards, or is that normal?
So our rates remissions are in line with what we had budgeted for.
Thank you. Carry on.
So our audit has now been completed by Audit New Zealand, and I'll take this opportunity to welcome Anton Labashakne and Mariska as well, and we'll invite them up to join the conversation. So Anton has provided us an unqualified clean audit opinion, which has been tabled as part of the agenda, and just wanting to highlight that there is, although it is a clean audit opinion, there is a noted emphasis of matter, which will be an emphasis of matter on most audit opinions this year, as it refers to the local waters done well and the uncertainty effect that's still out there with decisions for this council to move to a CCO. We've also received a representation letter, which is tabled item number 2, and that notes 2 uncorrected misstatements, which relate to some judgmental vested asset transactions, where some sampling identified 442,000 that required adjustment, which council made that adjustment, but the process of audit is to then extrapolate the 442 over the full population sample, and came up with some judgmental uncorrected misstatements, which Anton's now going to reflect on that in the wording, and just to note that audit aren't requesting that we change those, and that's a noting scenario. There are also a couple of uncorrected disclosures, which are effectively immaterial disclosures in the report, which also are not required for us to be changing. Maybe I can invite Anton to say a few words regarding the audit.
Good morning, councillors. I'll just start off by saying, I know it probably feels like a little while ago, but congratulations on the elections for you. I'm here to present the audit opinion on the Western Bay of Plenty District Council's annual report. As Jonathan noted, it is a non-standard opinion, meaning that we're happy with the financial statements. Non-financial reporting is materially correct. However, we do have that emphasis on that on the local waters done well. All that is doing is just saying that you have made disclosures in your annual report. We think it's important for the readers to look at that disclosures, and we've just pointed the readers to that. And as Jonathan noted, it's pretty much a standard disclosure for all councils in this process. I do want to note that annual report process is actually quite a complex project that requires the input and a number of staff across multiple departments within the council. For those that were on the council for the 23-24 annual report, you'll recall it was actually adopted in February 25. This year's annual report is now being adopted in November. This is quite a significant turnaround, and I believe the council should be proud of the processes that's put in place to ensure the annual report is adopted much earlier than last year. But, you know, council is a big ship, and so there's, you know, you can't do all the improvements over 1 year, and I think next year we'll see even further improvements to the process, and we'll be, other than the election process, we should believe the council would be able to adopt by end of October. I'd just also like to thank the council staff and that for all the assistance provided, and also my staff for all the hard work and late nights they put in to get to here today. I'm happy to take any questions now.
Thank you, Anton. Firstly, I'd add my thanks to you and Mariska for work you've done with our council and our staff for assisting you on that, and it's great to be in a position where we are now. But with that, I'll open it to questions from from councillors. So does anyone have a question either for staff or for our auditors? Councillor Elvin.
I'm a bit unfamiliar with council process, but in a private sector environment, there would be a meeting between the auditors and elected members excluding staff. And has that occurred in this case? Because there was quite a few changes over the term. So
Yes, so throughout the process, I've met with the mayor. You've had a audit and risk chair and an independent member up until the triennium. I met with them regularly, just one-on-one. So yes, that does occur.
Any other questions for the team? Deputy Mayor Murray Bench.
I'm not quite sure that this is a question or not, but could I ask you, is audit, central government audit in control that you've got through your challenges? And I really liked the way you complimented the council on making sure that since Miriam has been in charge, that we've seen significant change. It's a wonderful thing to actually have an annual report. Timing might be different, but it's really good to have that because it's a reminder of what lies ahead of us. But I know that you did have difficulties with audit, so all's well?
Sorry, when you talk about difficulties, if you can just clarify so that I actually make sure I'm answering the right question.
Well, I'm not sure, but I remember that there was a lot of coming and going last term.
I think you may be referring to the processes previously. Okay. Miriam, you wanted to say something?
Through you, Your Worship, I just wanted to make a comment. I would really like to thank Matt and the team and the other GMs for assisting in what I think is a great improvement. I have to say that I'm really pleased with the outcome, and I agree with the auditor that next year we'll be completely back on track in terms of performance and delivery. And a lot of effort's gone into this piece of work for previous councillors who are aware of some of the issues that we have had. So I just wanted to thank everyone for all the effort that put into that for this result. So thank you.
Thank you, Miriam. Councillor Cox said you had a question.
Oh, sorry, I had my thing on the whole time. Just following on from Councillor Alvin's question, you said you met with the mayor and also the independent chair, but did you meet with the audit risk and finance chair as well?
Yes, I did.
Okay, thank you. So I've got let's receive this. I've got the actual representation letter here, and I understand we'll better sign it before I give it to you. But Matt, please.
Thank you, Worship. I'd just like to reiterate what the Chief Executive said. Often there's a lot of people who do an awful lot of work on the annual report, and Jonathan and I sit here and present it, but to provide the document in front of you, there's probably 15 to 18 staff members involved across the organisation who have worked really, really hard. One, to improve how it's delivered last year, and to really set a really good platform for going forward. So whilst it's a great result, we're not going to sit back and accept it. We'll push hard next year to improve it further. But also just like to say thanks to Anton and Mariska. The communication has been great. There has been plenty of robust conversation about elements in the annual report, so you can rest assured they are very independent. And just like to say thanks very much for the process. It's gone really well. And also have the answer to Councillor Cox's question about Heron Crescent. We received $4.6 million from the Better Off funding and $6.5 million for the Ministry of Housing and Urban Development, so a total of $11.1 million. And that's on page 34 of the annual report. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. So we have 6 recommendations there, and just noting the attachment within the agenda for the annual report itself, and the significant table of significant amendments, and the 2 tabled items, one of which is the audit opinion from Audit New Zealand, and also the letter of representation from us, basically. So, Councillor Ray, did you have Do you wanna
Sorry,
move or you
sir,
have a last
I
question?
did have a question. It wasn't an audit related question, so I thought that I'd hold off, but then I could see we were moving through. to
Okay,
the
please ask a question.
recommendations. It's just around the wording and it's just on page 93 of the agenda. The page, 93 of the report as well. I'm just concerned about the wording here because it's very important for me that this council is we're fully transparent and we're telling the public exactly what has happened. Now, under the narrative here around the cemetery extension, I'm sorry, but that is not what has happened because it says here that the Muketu Cemetery extension was delayed due to planned layout alterations. The Muketu Cemetery started to be extended in 2022. So we saying that it's taken 3 years for that. Like my understanding was the contractual stuff up. That was the reason we got to where we are now. So that wording is just not correct.
I'm going to look at Peter here. I'll give him a heads up, but we did change the layout of the Muketu Cemetery during the last year. I was on site for a discussion about that and discussion with the community, but maybe Peter Watson would like to comment on that.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, so I differ from Councillor Ray's opinion. There was constructed and the layout was incorrect. We got a lot of feedback from the community and we went back and redesigned that layout and implemented that with the closer community input to it, and that took a delay. You may recall there was Cyclone Gabriel too, which also caused a lot of flooding issues and damage, and we had to work with the community on dealing with some of the lower plots that were flooded, and we raised those. So it was agreed with the community board that we'd do that in a staged approach and then so that was done before Christmas last year, if you will recall. And then we did the primary changes during this winter period following a brief a site meeting followed by a period of consultation with the community to make sure that we got it right. So I think that the statement generally does align with what has occurred.
Sir, I really appreciate all of the work that was done in the cemetery, and I know every single detail of all of that, what you just said, but this wording and this narrative is absolutely not the truth.
Councillor Ray, would you like to suggest a wording that fits better with your understanding?
All I wanted to say is what actually happened, because it was not delayed due to planned layout alterations or weather-related holdups. Because a 3-year delay around that particular reason, that's just not possible.
Okay, I think they are part of the delay. I mean, there may have been delays previously for other reasons, but it was delayed in the annual report year due to planned layout alterations and Gabrielle and flooding and so on. Okay, well, if we can't have any different wording, then it'll stand as it is. Okay. So 6 recommendations there. So I thought we'd finish questions, but. So
the PowerPoint has several more pages. So it seems that we've.
Oh, sorry, I wasn't aware of that. Okay, do you want to finish your presentation, Jonathan?
Yeah, we certainly can. So there's been some questions that's been received from councillors.
Thank you.
That if we can bring those slides back up, we can go through those.
My questions on this answer.
Yes, you got raising a point of order.
No, I was just suggesting a solution to Laura's dilemma. Maybe minor editorial changes could be made.
I've asked for that. If you've got a change you want to make, then please bring it.
Could it be done under the minor editorial changes?
It could be, yes, and that's what I'm aiming for. But we've got to know what it is.
Yeah. Well,
but you think about it and then come back, and I'll let Jonathan complete the presentation.
So we've received some questions from councillors after the invitation was sent around to ask in advance. So we've prepared some answers and provided some further information. So the question was, can we please see a view of these numbers? So we're talking about the support services funding impact statement. So in the statement, we show a 23.2 million versus an annual plan of 35.9, and it was to get a further understanding of that gap. So the 23.2 is the actual number for the year ended 25. So what we've done is in the purple table, I've shown the treasury impact on those numbers. So in the 25 annual report, there was a 5.4 million treasury impact, which is a benefit to that area. So when we remove that, it increases that sources of operating funding to 28.6. The other side of that is then the 4.8 million, which reduces the annual plan number to 31.
Sorry. So I'm confused here. You've compared the 25 annual report to the 26 annual plan. That's not the 25 annual plan. And we're forecasting a treasury impact of 4.8 million for the current year. Is that because we've already booked some losses this year, or what's? I'm just a bit confused on how we're booking in advance, presuming that these are actually treasury revaluations, which I'm guessing will be done at the end of the year. So how are we getting a treasury impact for the current financial year when we're only 4 or 5 months in place?
So the 4.8 million is the treasury impact of our internal loans. So in the support services, it's like council's bank in that support services area. So that's the interest impact coming into, in this case, coming out of the support services funding impact statement.
So, and this is for the current financial year, right?
So
You said comparing the annual report to the annual plan, but there's 2 different years up there. And the figures match the 2 different years as well. So I'm a bit confused here. The other thing I'll be interested to know is, can we get this on a regular basis? Because these are presumably revaluation changes, a lot of them.
So no, a lot of them are so these 2 treasury impact numbers are the interest costs that hit the support services activity. So the other side of those interest costs are the rest of the business activities. So when we look at a whole of council image, they then net off to zero for those internal loans.
Can we routinely get this provided so that we can see it? I don't know whether you include it in the actual numbers or whether you include it in the accounting notes, but it adds quite a lot of volatility, and it is significant. And at the moment, it's hidden.
So Councillor Joyce, this will come with the monthly financial reporting that's provided to the council and Audit, Risk and Finance, and it will be fully transparent at each of those meetings.
Right, but also in the annual report, it needs to be transparent.
It is transparent in the annual report.
Well, you can show me later because it's not showing in the financial statements for support services.
I'm happy to take that aside. Yeah.
So the second question we have received is around the transportation maintenance costs. So in the measures, you can see that the 24 result of 33,785 is doubled to 62,000. The information received back from the transportation team are those 3 bullet points. So we've had a substantially larger increase in reseals in the 25 compared to 24. And that's the additional lane kilometres that have been sealed through that period. So 159 kilometres versus 50 in the previous year. And there's been also increased investment in our drainage maintenance costs. So that's to ensure that our surface water channels and culverts are at a condition that doesn't then result in costly rehabilitations down the path. And also in the current financial year, the year just ended, we've had increased environmental maintenance spending as well. And that was briefly talked about earlier when we looked at the maintenance costs.
These are my questions. Yeah, they're my questions. So hence I'm following them up. So would it be fair to say that perhaps the 2024 result was unusually low rather than the 25 result was unusually high?
The 24 result is probably not what was needed for the network.
So the next question we received was regarding water loss. So our percentage in the annual report is 36% against a target of 22. And the question answering there. I've split that into two answers. So the council has currently initiated a water loss improvement project, and that's involving teams from finance right through to the operations team. Firstly, looking at the accuracy of the meter reading, making sure we're getting the correct data coming into the systems, then doing a comparison on what's produced at the treatment plants versus what we're invoicing out to customers. And then once we've got that data known and accurate, then we will look to continue that targeted leak protection program. When comparing to other councils, we sit middle of the table, if you like. So our loss is 136 litres per connection per day. So that's the measure that we're able to see across all councils. Average across other councils is 163 per lost litres per day per connection. We sit 17% better than average. We're 25 out of 54 providers. The team's well aware that when we're not at that 22% target, and the initiative above, along with other initiatives, have been indicated by the team to be a focus going forward.
Miriam?
Your Worship, I just want to make a comment. We want to make sure that we're actually talking about water loss. That's why we're doing an in-depth review. There's particular focus on the accuracy of the meters as well. We have to confirm that it's actual water loss, and we have to make sure that the readings are correct. So there's quite a lot of work to go on in that space.
Yeah, the efficacy of the meters is a bit of a worry because that's what we're building.
I am conscious that some of these questions are traversing into projects and monitoring kind of rather than signing off an annual report. So I'm happy to answer the questions, you got them provided, but just conscious that some of these things, talking about future looking stuff is perhaps better saved for a different day, but I'll carry on for now, but just point that out.
Can I just ask my question? And it's actually related to that. What is the plan to report back on that program? Seeing as it is quite an important one, and I presume we'll come back to PNM.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to get into specifics, but projects and monitoring is where this kind of stuff should come to. And I don't know if Brad wants to add anything more, but I presume that's got it in his schedule. Yeah, okay. Councillor Alvin.
Given the commentary about water loss in some of the areas, how do we compare to median rather than average, or what do we compare to compared to the top three? Some of those statistics.
Okay. Great question. Let's save it for the projects and monitoring because that's really not what we're asking.
Okay,
today.
thank you very much, sir.
Could I just make one more comment to clarify? A lot of councils don't have metered water either, so it's a lot more complex than we think.
Jonathan?
So there was a question regarding our regulatory services. So in the annual report, there is a surplus sitting in there, which can be seen in the FIS statements. So the comments we've got in that space are up on the board. And in terms of seeking a trend as well. So definitely a positive feel for the team, but we're still reliant on a volatile market. We have had a conservative approach in our budgeting for the current year, and it's a volume-based budget as well. So revenue is driven based on those volume assumptions. And we're using MBIE and developer and community engagement to make sure we've got the latest data in those assumptions. So a couple of balance sheet questions. So when we're comparing accounts receivable from last year to this year, so our receivables are 8 million higher than last year. And this is predominantly due to an income accrual sitting in sundry debtors of 5.4 million. So there's a large NZTA claim for Omokoroa Works sitting in that number this year. On the trade payable side, which is 45% higher, being 14 million than last year. And again, this is due to some large capital payments due at year end that were still in our payables at that year end timing. So that's due to the larger capital program. And there's just 4 of the bigger ones that were sitting in our payables ledger at the end of the period. That was the end of those formal questions.
Okay, any further questions? Are you good? Okay. Okay, so there are 6 recommendations there. And just to circle back to Councillor Ray and Councillor Daly's commentary there. If I find the right page. Okay, sorry. There are multiple documents at the moment, so I'm just navigating my way through those. So, I mean, this can be covered under delegation for minor editorial changes, and Councillor Daly has provided something, although we do have to, on the advice of the CE, we do have to provide a summary of the big drivers, so we can't just make it completely random or generic. But I would be happy to say the Makatu Cemetery extension was delayed due to plan layout alterations and weather-related holdups and other factors. Councillor Daly had suggested due to an array of issues, but I think we need to be a wee bit more specific than that.
I'll clarify, it's Laura's words. She's the one that's concerned.
None of it was planned. It was all unplanned.
Sorry,
It was all unplanned by this outfit anyway. It was, we had to go in and do what we did afterwards because of what happened. So therefore, the wording that I've put forward, I just think that's more reflective of the truth. That's all.
So
I absolutely don't
You've
believe
put
that's
delayed and
enough.
resigned due to an array of issues.
Yeah,
And
that's just better to say because it's more
Well,
truthful.
I think it's truthful to say about the layout and the flooding, and we can say other issues as well, because I've no doubt there were a number of factors.
Your worship, in the interest of expediency and discussion, I don't actually think it's not material, the explanation, so I think that explanation is okay. I think that could be acceptable.
Okay, I'm happy, either
Yeah.
way, but
Yeah, normally we would list things, but in terms of the reasons and the size of the project, I don't think it's material to worry about.
okay, thank you, Miriam. So there's 6 recommendations there. We'll change that wording to the Makatu Cemetery extension was delayed and redesigned due to an array of issues. So with that minor amendment, which can be done under the editorial changes, do I have a mover and seconder for those 6 recommendations, please? Councillor Joyce and Councillor Coxhead. Any debate on this one? Councillor Joyce?
I was confused by your comment saying that we were delving into projects and monitoring. As I understand, an annual report is a report on the full activities of council. So, my questions were about the full activity of council. So I don't really accept that asking a question about a non-financial matter is.
There were questions in there like why and what can we do about it? So there's things which start to look forward and are about decisions coming up, not about the activities of the past.
They arose all from the annual report, and I think
that's why I took a generous view of it. I don't want to make a big fuss about it, but just commenting that if you start to ask questions in an annual report, adoption program about how we're going to address future issues, that's probably overstepping.
Well, okay, I differ my view because it's the one chance we get to see an in-depth look at the whole council's activity for the year. It's an important document and it covers everything in council, not just the financials.
Yeah, Deputy Mayor Murray Bench.
One of the things I want to say is I think this report, annual report, is a bit late, but we've got there. And whereby we're having criticisms about the process, they can all be brought up at projects and monitoring or audit and risk, but it's a layout for what we've done and it's a layout for what lies ahead. And so I think the report, I want to just comment, one of the greatest decisions that the mayor made was the appointment of an interim chief exec in Miriam Terrace. And we have seen significant improvements since that time. God only knows where we would be if it was what was happening before. So I feel very satisfied that we've done our best. And I'm sorry if I was critical of Audit New Zealand, because probably it was in our end more than your end that we had the problems. So I recall that. But anyway, sir, I just think to you, sir, and to Miriam and to Matt and Jonathan, it's a good report. And for Audit New Zealand, thank you for being part of it. We pay you heavily and we work you hard, and it's a long, so I'm just happy that we've got there. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Miriam, you'll say.
Just to clarify in terms of the timing, we would have had the report signed off by the end of October, but we had to get in the queue, and we had to get in the queue because of our past performance. So we actually were able to deliver, and audit was able to deliver, but it was a combination of the election period, which gets in the way of the annual report deadline of the end of October. So if we'd been in a non-election year, we would have been able to meet our deadline formally. So I don't think we dropped the ball in that space. I just want to make that clarification.
Councillor Coxhead.
Just really a point of clarification, Councillor Joyce's comments. I think, well, what I believe is, a lot of those figures were disparate or outside plan because of timing. I think that's an important issue to be discussed at this meeting. And also some of it was because of things that were over-delivered in a good way. So I think, I don't know where the line is, to be honest. I can't see any harm in the questions he asked is really what I want to say.
That's why I allowed them to be answered. Are you all comfortable with that?
Yes, yes.
Some of them were just starting to get a little bit future
Yeah,
focused, that's all.
okay.
Councillor Elvin.
Yes, look, don't spend that much time poring over hundreds of pages of annual reports, but I would like to say that I thought this year's annual report was an improvement on last year's to a considerable degree. So thanks very much for the effort that went in there. I thought it was much more informative.
Okay, so it's been moved by Councillor Joyce, it's been seconded by Councillor Coxhead. There are no more speakers, so I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. So thank you once again, Anton and Riska. I'll let you get out, and I think we'll probably break for morning tea at this point, and back at 10:45. Thank you very much, everyone.
Yeah.
Okay, good morning, councillors. Having a nice little break. So we'll move straight back into the next part of our agenda, which is on page 251. It's the monthly financial report, item 10.5. So if I'll ask Jonathan and Matt to introduce this one.
Thank you, Worship. Councillors, just before Jonathan goes through the detail and answers any questions you may have, and is highlighted in the report, this is the last time you'll see the financials in this format. We've been working on a revised version that will come back to the next Audit, Finance and Risk Committee and Council. It's not set in stone, so if there is feedback on the presentation, the layout, we'll be happy to receive direction or comments at that next meeting.
I think I'd also just like to highlight, I don't know if you're coming to it, but the report in the actual agenda is not correct. It was from some form, but there's a replacement document that's been uploaded. So I think I want to make that clear. Jonathan, I don't know if you want to clarify that one at all or explain that.
Yeah, absolutely. So apologies for that. So in the one that was put up with the agenda initially, there was some incorrect debt numbers and balance sheet numbers. So those were corrected. So the challenge with that was we still had the annual plan going. As soon as we rolled that and shut that over, then it affected the September numbers when we reprinted those. So these are the correct September numbers that have now been sent through as a later tabled item. So these are the numbers to the period ending September. So the first 3 months of the year. So on page 1, we've got a financial snapshot there. So with 25% through the year, revenues at 24% against expenses at 23%, and our capital program 21% complete. So obviously things don't happen linearly, but in terms of where we're tracking so far, those are on schedule. Our total debt, so that's our borrowings from LGFA at the 30th of September of 205 million. And that's with less a cash amount of 65 million on hand. And that high level of cash is because of our rates. Instalment ones were due on the 20th of September. So we had
251. And if you go to the new document uploaded, that will have the correct numbers in it.
Page 3.
So the significant amount of cash sitting in the bank account at the 30th September is a result of ratepayers paying their rates just prior to that period end. I step towards page 4 now, looking at our statement of comprehensive revenue and expenses. I'll just go through the big discrepancies or highlight some of those. So our financial contributions are unfavourable to budget, and that's due to timing of income into relation of developments. It is a challenging area to phase those budgets and forecasts, but we look to use various methods to try and get that as accurate as possible in our budgeting phase. In the other expenses area, we do have some positive or favourable amounts to budget of 2.4 million. That's due to timings of projects. So our Datascape project, payments due to them, that's favourable by 1.2 million. And also the setup costs for the CCO haven't happened yet in that Q1 period. So they're favourable by 700,000.
Councillor Joyce?
I realise it's 3 months into the year, and so timing is, we're just going into construction season, and there's quite a few things. In future, is it possible to sort of try and give us a trend number that excludes timing effects, do you think? So we actually know what, where we think we're heading towards. I realise it's not going to be cast in stone and things will change, but at least, if we could see in some way, we could see this with the timing effects removed, because the timing effects just blur the picture, right? Would be a suggestion. The other one, it would be good to get a head count. I think we use what is it, FTE plus temp2 is our standard measure. So to get a head count so we can track that. I know it's a sensitive one, but governance bodies like to track head count. They just do, company boards and all sorts. But just so that we know at the overall level what that is, and have a consistent measure. I'd say I think it's FTE and temp to contractors, isn't it? Is what we use. Yeah, so that would be helpful as well. Because I mean, at the moment we've just got, well, we had it in the annual report as well, we're below by 22 FTEs, but again, we don't know if that's just because of vacancies or whether that's actually because of savings. So I don't know how that would also be managed.
Miriam?
I can also comment that quarterly you would be receiving at Projects and Monitoring, I imagine, an update on all of the HR and all of those things. We haven't got a Projects and Monitoring committee meeting before the end of the year, so we're a little bit haven't got underway, but you will get all of that information quarterly anyway. So I think that will help fill all of the gaps that you might have.
Picking up on your comments, Councillor Joyce, certainly with the next iteration we're looking at, we will definitely aim to provide some trends on where we expect to end up at the end of the year. So we might note there is some timing and the likes of financial contributions, we don't have the ability, but we might say the way we're tracking, this is where we expect to end up. And then the same, our intent will be that the financial information will mirror the type of reporting you get at Projects and Monitoring, so that they marry up from a progress perspective and a numbers perspective.
Just shifting across now to the statement of financial position. So when comparing to the budget column, just noting that that is the full year budget. We don't phase our budgets monthly during that budget process. So those are the year-end budgets that are sitting there. But just to highlight some of the bigger differences that are there, the cash that we previously talked about. So the 65 million in the bank, that is unusual. And that is to do with term deposits and cash deposits on hand through that rates instalment being received. And another number which is slightly different from the budget is the payables and deferred revenue line. So that's sitting at 71.6 million in the actuals 30 September. That's a lot higher, but there is income in advance. And again, that's that same rate scenario where we've recorded all our rates income for the period. So we reversed that out, and that sits in payables effectively until we're entitled to be able to record it. The final thing I was wanting to highlight is on page 14, which is the Treasury report. So there is, and one thing we will look at as well as the format of this, there is a lot of detail in one page on this report. But just wanting to note that the Zespri shares have been sold during that first quarter. So that was through a share buyback process. So we didn't need to go through an investment firm to do that for us. And since this report was completed as well, the Seeka shares have recently been sold too. Our current cost of funds, including margin at 30 September, sits at 4.05%, and our average borrowing term, if you like, for all our debt facilities is 2.45 years, so just under 2.5 years, the tenure of all our loans on average.
Deputy Mayor Murray-Bench.
Yeah, Jonathan, can you just explain for me a bit more the funding risk? And you've got it there in red and across through it. What's that telling me?
Yeah, so that's a reflection of the graph above as well. So that's stating that in that 0 to 3 year period, our actual at 68% is sitting outside of where we need to be across the policy.
I think the question is, what does 68% mean?
It's buckets. I want to explain that.
So, councillors, what it means is with our Treasury policy, you have to have your lending across certain budgets to protect us from the risk of not being able to refinance. So you have some short debt, so less than 3 years, some medium term of that 3 to 7, and some in that 7 to 15 year buckets. So it's just a protection and a hedging mechanism. Where it's in red at the moment, that means that we're outside of our policy, which says we can borrow between 15% to 60% of all of our debt in that 0 to 3 years. We're slightly outside of that policy at the minute, just like we are on the interest rate limits, and that is intentional at the moment. As everyone's probably quite well aware, we're moving into quite a significant downturn in interest rates. So we're just trying to pick the bottom, which we think will be there tomorrow. And we will then do some additional funding to bring ourselves back into compliance. But it has been an intentional thing to try and maximise our interest rate opportunities.
I did have a question actually on the previous page, page 12, and that is on the Kalikati Arts Junction. It says 200,000 unfavourable due to unplanned remediation of weather tightness issues. My understanding is entirely planned, or are we saying that cost 200,000 more than we thought it was going to cost?
I think, Your Worship, it means that whilst the works might have been planned, we weren't anticipating to have to do weather tight related works on that project.
Or is entirely weather tightness related? So you can come back to me if you need to.
We'll double check that.
Yeah, thank you.
Just reflecting on Matt's comments, just to finish off as well, part of our profile on that interest rate to swap decision piece is also to do with the local waters done well. So until we get certainty around what that debt profile is going to look like for council, we've taken that purposeful strategy. But in discussions with Bancorp recently as well, they're now starting to move away from that intentional out of policy piece, and with where rates sit, asking us to consider and providing their guidance that maybe it's almost time to start looking to come back to policy minimums.
So the other thing, councillors, probably to think about and moving forward is that the LGFA and the banks that we do our interest rate swaps with have all now agreed that those loans and debt that will be associated with local waters done well can be novated across to the new entity. So that's quite a step change from a couple of months ago.
Mayor, what does that mean?
It means that rather than Western Bay having to hold that debt and on-lend it to the water services entity for a period of time, or potentially repay those loans early and suffer some additional interest, they will allow us to transfer those loans directly into the name of the water services entity rather than being Western Bay's name.
So that means we will have two accounts highlighting where the money is, debt and the loans are for water services?
Yes, that'll be part of the process. The local water's done well, and the transition that would be very clearly reported back to council of our total debt. This is how much will transfer, and I would imagine as we go through that process, it will be very clearly reported back to council about how that transition is going.
Thank you.
Councillor Coxhead.
Matt just answered it. I was just going to ask about how does that translate into the CCO when you've got Tauranga will be doing the same, but it'll be, I guess, legit, wouldn't it? And then, like you say, reported back. Yeah.
Absolutely. And then it's no different to transferring a mortgage to someone. It will come out of Western Bay's name, will go into the CCO's name, and the same with TCC. Their debt that's been agreed and transferred across will sit with them. And if you remember that everything is going to be ring fenced for up to 5 years until it gets normalised.
And to explain it, councillors, it's ideal for us that we're going to transition as part of an LTP year. So what happens in effect is you prepare 3 sets of accounts. You prepare a set of accounts at the end of June 2027 that have the water entity assets still in council, and then you do a transitional set of accounts on that one day, the last day of 2027, and that shows what the council assets and everything is. And so that's basically a transition set of accounts, and then you see the new entity, and then you see day one, which shows you the new entity set up. So you have 3 sets of accounts happen in basically one day. And we've done that on a number of occasions in local government where we've done there's been a change in legislation and we've had to prepare transitory accounts because there's been a change in financial treatment. So it'll be very clear, but it's not going to happen until 2027.
Okay. And you finished your presentation?
Yeah, happy.
Any further questions?
So question again, it's not going to happen to 2027. Why do we do it now?
So councillor, we're not doing it now. It's more was just to highlight that as we work through the process, there will be that novation element, but it will be on the 1st of July 2027. It was more to highlight that we'll be very transparent about what that looks over the next 18 months.
Okay, so no more questions. There's a recommendation there to receive the monthly financial report. Can I have a mover and seconder, please? Councillor Coxhead, Councillor Elvin. I don't think we need to debate it further, so I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Now moving to page 266 and the Waihi Beach Lifeguard Services Incorporated request for an extension of tenure of land lease on Waihi Beach Surf Club Reserve until 2071. Peter.
Good morning, Your Worship and councillors. So you'll see the report pretty much speaks for itself. We recently entered into the second half or renewal of the Waihi Beach Surf Lifesaving Lifeguard Services lease, and they are about to undertake an investment just short of $1 million, and we're seeking to have an extension of that lease period to ensure a return on investment by adding in another 30 years to extend it out to 2071, I think it is, yeah. And I guess from our perspective, there's been no need for any consultation because it's a pretty big, large building. It needs to be in that site. It's existed there for 80 odd years or so. Sorry. 90 years, that's right. I'm sure the building was there for 90 years, but there has been other buildings there, yeah. So yeah, recently they had their 90th birthday. So they're a very strong club, very important part of the community social infrastructure up there. And it's something that certainly staff support this organisation and been very active and worked very closely with us on a lot of things across the Rohe up there. So yeah, happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Peter. Any questions for him? Councillor Beach.
Yes, look, the surf club itself, volunteers, they're pillars of the community, absolutely, and I fully support what they're trying to do here. What I'm deeply concerned about is probably more the system. I'm under the belief that normally leases are around about 30 years and to ask for 46 years with some form of investment. I don't underestimate that as well, but are we as a council setting a precedent and saying, well, if we're going to allow the leases to be expanded beyond 30 years, are we setting a precedent for other organisations to come back with similar things? Pukehina Surf Club no doubt invested a couple of $1 million. Is their lease being extended? I do understand too, you know, you've got Thunder Ridge, which I think was probably a one-off type thing where council agreed, hey, we need to extend the lease period for a long time because of the amount of financial input that they were putting. But my biggest concern basically is around the 30-year mark.
Sure. To respond to that, so what the point of difference is with the Waihi Beach Lifeguard Service, which noted in the report, is that the area in 2007 was subdivided off for lease purposes. That's the point of difference, because that means you can go beyond the normal 35 years under the RMA. If you're looking at other areas where you're going to extend beyond 35 years less one day under the RMA, then you're effectively subdividing or changing that off. So that's why we had back in 2007 to help address their concerns back then. We got it surveyed off and made it a specific area, separate title for lease purpose, so it can go beyond and it doesn't trigger those legal issues relating to there. And that's similar to what we're doing with Thunder Ridge and the other users at Tomato Motorsports, is doing the subdivision to give them individual titles, because if you have a leasing just the whole title, then you don't trigger doing a part leasing of a title. So that's why we're doing it there, and that's what we've done here. So yeah, and Surf Lifesaving Club is about $5 odd million out at Pukehina, and they got a new lease that gave an extension to that time pretty much aligning with the life they're building and the investment out there as well. Yeah.
Miriam.
Councillor Beach, I think your query was, is 30 years too long? I think yours was the other view. Is that correct, that you were worried about a length of commitment? Is that your concern, that it would end up?
Yes. You know, they are probably one of many organisations that lease council land. And I do know there's a lot of capital investment by a lot of organisations. Does that trigger every time someone spends a significant amount of funding, does that trigger an ask for an extension of the lease above and beyond the 30 or 35 years? That was what I was getting.
So, Brad, can you answer that? Because I see the concerns that councillor has.
Yeah, Councillor, if you're concerned about precedent setting, I would suggest that this is not uncommon for local government. Local government does set aside long-term leases where it sees benefit for the community, and 30 years and beyond is fairly normal for local government to consider where it sees that there's benefit to the community for setting aside such a long-term lease. So it is common in local government. It wouldn't necessarily be precedent setting.
Councillor Sol.
Thank you, sir. Mine's more to do with the lease term and the building itself. I just want to be sure, I'm no issue about the lease, frankly, but I want to be sure that we don't have any exposure here, or what possibility of exposure is there with coastal inundation, etc. And we know already that the surf club has had water flow through there via flooding and waves. How exposed are we with regard to the building, which is theirs, and or in the future it becoming unusable? Is there any risk to council long term? That's really my question.
Mr. Chair, I can answer that question. Council is already exposed to that risk, because when the surf club back in circa 2007 went from the small building to the major big building, they invested 750,000 back then. They had a resource consent condition that said that if the building gets inundated and wrecked, then you've got to pick it up and take it away. They came back to council. A report was put to the council of the time, who agreed to accept that liability and take that risk part out of the resource consent. So there's a resolution on council's books already that accepts that we would be party to any removal of that building should coastal erosion occur. For the removal of the building in the event that ever happened.
This lease extension, though, is part of securing their investment to make it resilient to flooding, though. I think they talk about a wet floor area, so that if the flood does come through, that the damage isn't there, or it protects it. That's my understanding, Peter.
Correct, that is part of it. They got insurance monies from the 29th of May 2023 flood that went right through their buildings and other buildings down around in Muddercamp. So that's what they're in a position now of getting sorted out, and that's what the investment entails.
I have Councillor Daly and then Councillor Elvin.
Peter, I just noticed in the letter from Donna February that they plan to recontour the dunes in front of the club rooms. I was just wondering, does that need a resource consent, or it looks like that area of dune is already probably lower than the northernmost dunes, and I know there's a lot of consideration of building up the dunes with the special grasses that help bind the dunes, and I'm just wondering if this is going to exacerbate the flooding situation, although I do note that it's beside is it the 1 Mile Creek there to the left?
Yeah, thank you. Correct. So I guess reshaping the dunes may not be the best term of words, but we have worked with them to enable them. Obviously, we're trying to establish the best dune system we can in front of their property, into front of the building, to help prevent inundation from the sea. And we do that by aligning it so they can get their IRBs and quad bikes, etc., down the beach without causing any further damage. The flooding she's referring to in here is that of an upper catchment that's coming down. It's freshwater flooding catchment issues, not and that at the end of 1 Mile Creek Council in the past has invested a bit of money into doing sand pillows there to direct any flooding further out and not cutting it across the dunes. Once again, that's been supported by council, given its inherent liability accepted back in 2007.
The dune planting and reshaping is a model of how to do it outside their club. It's, if you look at it, it's
a good thing.
well maintained, and it looks really good.
It's what we call one of our exemplars of how to do a dune.
Okay.
Councillor Alvin.
Yes, I just wanted to refocus on Councillor Sol's issue really around risk. So if I understood, you said that council accepted reliability with respect to removal as part of the resource consent grant last time. Is that what I understood you say?
That is correct.
Okay. I mean, it's kind of illusory, isn't it? Because whether it's in there or not, as an incorporated society, if something happens, they've got no money anyway. So it falls back on us to deal with it in any event. And my concern is whether you say it's included or not doesn't matter. If the incorporated society falls over, we're landed with it. And my point is, do we properly factor in, and I'm in favour of this, don't get me wrong, because it's a public benefit, but we do take on quite a significant risk in a space that is subject to climate change obligations, increased risk of inability to insure. You know, we do take on quite a heavy risk. If this thing gets damaged significantly, the club just walks away because it's got no money, and we are left with the remedial work there. What provisions do we do to provide for that? Or is it just a risk we accept?
I think, for example, it's a risk we accept to a point, and just looking about the probability and the consequence of that. I think the probability will increase over time of sea level rise if we follow that trend. But the Surf Life Saving New Zealand have done this risk assessment on all their membership around the country, and probably about 90% of their membership sit in this risk category. Port Waikato, Sunset Beach have moved their building 3 times. I think they've given up now and just moved it away. It's such a dynamic, that's the West Coast environment. So it's relatively settled from a, we do have a good dune system that's growing out in front of this area here. It's just around, it's at the end of the beach, and before you go around to the bay there. So it's not exposed to real prone open risk of sand being ripped out, etc., like further along the beach where we've had the seawall, etc. Yeah, so it is a bit of a calculated risk, but it nevertheless is a risk.
Yeah, I'll just add to that, Councillor. I think as a large landowner, councils end up taking on a lot more risk than your typical private entity would take on, and that's just the nature of being a council, that we end up having a higher risk tolerance for land-based risks simply because we're such a large landowner.
We're just sorry to carry on there. It's clear that we're not accepting any responsibility for any of that, though. I mean, we're not. The important thing is that we take on the risk, but we don't take on their risk.
Mr. Chair, there's also the insurances that are subject to the lease. So in the event of a fire, if the building's partially or totally destroyed, then we go through that process. Do we have it here? And deal with the different rules. It could be 2050 different rules that are in place at the time about whether you can establish a new building back there or not.
Councillor Sol.
Yeah, I just want that risk report that the New Zealand Surf Life Saving Council or whatever did, I think put Waihi Beach in number 2 or number 3 of the highest risk in the country. But as long as, I guess, we've got some commitments there, and we're quite open to the fact that 30 years, I guess, is where we'll lie. I'm comfy to move if people wish to go ahead.
Thank you, Councillor Sol. Moved by Councillor Sol. I was going to move, but I'll happy to second it. So moved and seconded. Is there any further debate on this one? Councillor Joyce.
I hear what people are saying.
Sorry to interrupt. That's recommendation 1, 2, and 3, not 4, just to be clear.
I figured as much.
Sorry, Councillor Joyce.
Sorry, I just wanted to speak to that. I fully take on the discussions about risk, and I realise it. is an issue that we should certainly look at carefully, but there are lots of risks here. I mean, the Surf Lifesaving Club has to be at the beach. So, you know, that's an inherent risk in the operation. Donna and team do amazing work. I was only conscious of the 90th birthday because I went along to part of it. So yeah, I just wanted to, the last annual report I can see says they carried out 8,498 safety interventions in 1 year. So, you know, there's also a risk of them not being there. 219 preventative actions, 9 assists, 8 searches, 22 minor first aids and 6 major first aids. That's the kind of service they do. They have to do that at the beach. So unfortunately, the risk can't be extinguished because if they did move away from the beach, we wouldn't have that service. And it's a treasure for Waihi Beach.
Thank you. Councillor Coxhead.
Yeah, I echo Councillor Joyce's comments there as well, and we're regularly down at the surf club and been to many events there as well. It's impeccably run, impeccably clean, beautiful, professional operation. The people running it are dedicated. And I mean, look at all the work they've done in terms of helping people with disabilities and access to the beach as well. I think it's world class, to be honest, in terms of what they've done there. So yeah, more than happy to support this.
Thank you, Councillor Coxhead. I'll just add my thanks to the Surf Lifesavers who do such a great job for our community. And I was recently there to help celebrate their 90th birthday. And that also demonstrates their longevity, which is important when we're considering a longer lease like this one. So yeah, I'm in favour of this one. Deputy Mayor Murray Bench.
One of the things that I think is important for this site is that around the corner where they're positioned, it's not necessarily the nicest piece of the beach and for swimming, and a loss of life has been there. But I'll really encourage anybody to go and have a cup of coffee up there in the Christmas time and watch them as they've got these little flippers running around and teaching them how to enjoy the sand and the sea. And their leader, she was nominated to be one of the best for the Western Bay Awards. And I think it's just an extraordinary environment and a great example to any surf club anywhere in the country.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Murray Bench. Okay, Councillor Alvin.
Yes, look, I don't want to come across as being the anti-surf life-saving Grinch, because I'm not. So I just want to speak to the fact that I'm wholly supportive of it. My issue is, are we as a council measuring our risk? This has nothing to do with whether the Surf Lifesaving do a great job or not, because they do. My concern is to make sure as an organisation we've properly managed our own risk, and you'll find that I'm 100% supportive in this if we have properly managed that risk, and that's the only point that I wanted to make.
I'm conscious we won't keep going around in circles on this one, or we'll keep going on. So I think Councillor Beach was next, and then Councillor Sol, if he wants his right to reply.
Yes, I certainly endorse Councillor Evan and Sol's remarks about risk. That's what it's all about. I do, however, support the volunteer Surf Lifesaving Club. We can't speak highly enough about our volunteers and what they do, so I will be supporting it, but keeping mindful of the risk factor.
Thank you. Councillor Sol.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, basically 100% what's said. That is, again, another one of the jewels of Waihi Beach. It is one of the things that brings people into that beach. It's part of what drives its economy. It's part of its whole society. In fact, Waihi Beach is the beach. So it's in the name. I raised the risk purely exactly on that basis that council is aware of our risk, and we're talking over a number of years. That was all that I was interested in. It has been answered that we already have accepted that. So that would be a process that we'd have to go through again if that's the case now. So I wouldn't be moving on that. They are a wonderful organisation. The people support it. There are more people from outside of Waihi Beach that belong to the Waihi Surf Lifesaving Club by, I don't know what the number would be, but it's probably 10 to 1 or more. That's how strong and popular it is. So I totally endorse us giving the extension to their lease there, and look forward to them progressing further.
Thank you, Councillor Sol. So with that, I'll put the motion for first or its recommendations 1, 2, and 3. Put the motion. All in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. So now we'll move on to another lease issue. So page 272, items 10.7, proposal to extend lease area Te Puke Community Men's Shed Trust at Te Puke Domain. Peter.
Thank you, Your Worship. So just as outlined in the background of the report, this used to be the Girls Guide venue, then they became disestablished and we did a registration of interest through the community, went involved the community board in that process, made a recommendation that to go to the men's shed for all sorts of obvious reasons about wellbeing, etc. And they have managed to make themselves so successful that they've run out of space. Sounds very similar to the Waihi Beach men's shed, where they recently got approval to extend their premises to accommodate their needs. So this is effectively a storage shed in the form of a shipping container, which would be painted the same colour as a building to blend in. That part of the reserve where they would like to put it is effectively not really used for recreation purposes of any kind. It's just a little bit of open space, but on that basis, we recommend that there be no need to undertake any public consultation on the matter, given the existence of the current building and the activity.
Thank you, Peter. It seems like a pretty straightforward one, but I'll open up to questions. Councillor Daly, did you have a question?
Peter, I did visit Kevin Heath at the men's shed earlier this year, and he told me that he had asked you about this possibility. And he told me he was planning on putting a 6 metre long container there. And I suggested, well, why not make it a 12 metre container instead of a 6 metre container? Because surely it would blend in beside that building quite comfortably. And he said, oh yeah, no, that's not bad. We probably could do with a lot more space than just one container, because basically it helps them move all their donated timber that's all stacked inside the building outside. And as you say in the report, increase their available workstations inside. So I assumed he would get back to you and suggest that maybe a bigger container would be more preferable, but I see with the proposed extension to the lease area that could still be accommodated within the extended area. Have you got any comments on that?
My only comments to that is that whilst I was away overseas earlier this year, some of this came about, and I caught up with Kevin when I got back from overseas, and what they've applied for is that size container. So I guess he's given that consideration, and we're just responding to what the applicants asked for.
Yeah, we need to respond to what's in front of us, not start giving ideas about what they may or may not have wanted to do.
But I mean, would you agree that that extended lease area, and the graphic is not great there, but it appears that you just extended a rectangular section.
So we're responding to what they're asking for, not, there's no point debating what they might have done or what might be better. That's
well,
not
I mean,
up to
what
us.
happens when they fill that container up and they want some more space?
Then they'll come back and they'll ask for some more.
I mean, surely it would be much easier to.
We're not going to change it, Grant.
Well,
Councillor Ray.
Just indicating I'll be happy to move, sir, when you're ready.
Thank you, Councillor Ray. Are there any other questions? Councillor Coxhead. You want to second it? Okay. I assume there was no more questions. So it's been moved by Councillor Ray and it's been seconded by Councillor Coxhead. And I assume that's 1, 2, and the first part of 3, and then and 4 as well. See if that's right, Councillor Ray? Okay. So Deputy Mayor Murray Bench.
I think this is exciting. I hate to be gushing on all the positive things that we've passed this morning, but they're good news stories. And this is the equivalent of men over 50 who don't play rugby or golf, who get lost in men's sheds and do wonderful work for their communities. I cannot believe how successful they have been. And it's all very well for Councillor Daly saying, well, we could give them a bigger thing. Well, they'll come back to us when they need it. But all things considered, this is good news for the Western Bay of Plenty. Happy to support it, sir.
Thank you. Councillor Sol.
Exactly the same, sir. Great outfit. They do such wonderful work. They really help with men's mental health. In many cases, I really do believe that. And I would have to support it, seeing as how we're going through the same process at Waihi Beach, I guess, as well. But in answer to Councillor Daly's situation, it's what we've got before us, plus it's not our place to actually increase their footprint and increase the costs to them. They must apply for it.
Yeah.
So, sir, 100% behind it. Great stuff.
Thank you. I think I'll just add that it's a good facility for the community, and the impact on the reserve is absolutely minimal, 45 square metres. So I would be in favour. Councillor Coxhead.
Obviously, I'm supportive of this, and as a wife who one day might have a husband who's got time on his hands, I'd be very grateful to send him along there. And I'm sure many other wives are
Or
as
just
well.
wants to get away from it.
Okay, Councillor Daly.
I'd like to endorse everything that's been said, including what I said before, but also I'd like to suggest maybe Tracy, you better be careful what you wish for, because you've got a big enough shed to host a men's shed in your own backyard if your husband's willing.
Okay, so with that, I'm going to put the motion. It's been moved by Councillor Ray, seconded by Councillor Coxhead. All in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Okay, another land issue for today. Page 279, item 10.8. The land exchange 340 Omokura Road with part of Kaimai Views Reserve in Omokura. So Peter and Roger.
Yeah. Thank you, Worship. Yeah, just firstly introduce Roger Foxley. He's represents the client in this. He's a consultant planner. He used to work here at Western Bay Council as well, so he's a good sort. Yeah. Yeah. So look, I guess the report just speaks for itself. That they've undertaken, the landowner's undertaken a subdivision and has a parcel, a lot of land at the back that fronts onto Sentinel Avenue. And there's opportunity, they've approached us about looking at exchanging part of their land, which would be added to the gully and valley, and we have some more native tree planting put in, etc., in lieu of some land, that big triangular area you'll see on the plans. Just to make it clear, there hasn't been any formal agreement and negotiation of values put in place at this point in time, because it's probably not worth doing that until council make its decision as administrating body whether it agrees in principle, and it has to go through the process of talking to the community and getting that feedback before making a final decision. But what I can assure you is that the land values, it's not on a square metre for square metre basis, because there's obviously a before and after value of having that small sliver of land be worth more, even though it's a smaller area, than the value that it can't be built on, etc. down there. So all those negotiations have yet to occur, and they'll be done through formal valuations by both parties, as normal process we do there. But what we're seeking today is the agreement in principle from council as administrating body as to whether or not you wish to pursue this exchange option, given that it'll create a couple of more lots, that'll be increase the rate base, and there'll be some financial consideration in doing that exchange as well for council. Yeah, so that's in doing this be a process that would go out to public tender, it's a public consultation, and seek feedback from the community. It'd probably occur in the new year if you were to pursue that option, and bring it back to a full report of council with any feedback from the community. So that's it in a nutshell. Happy to take any questions, and Roger's happy to clarify any points of view from his client's perspective.
Thank you, Peter. I have a question from Deputy Mayor Murray Bench.
No, I'm happy to move it when you're ready.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Dinsdale.
Morning. Thank you for your report. I just have one question. Is there any other option other than to discharge directly into the harbour?
I think you're on the wrong report, Councillor Dinsdale.
Oh, sorry. Well, it's still going to you.
Okay, so I think, well, I think that might be the next one. Yeah, I think it's the next item, Councillor Dinsdale. Councillor Daly.
I'm happy to second when you're ready.
Of course, councillor Joyce.
Just in the report, I noticed you've given the interested parties, but you haven't mentioned the community board. Under the Local Government Act, the community board is supposed to have an overview of council operations in its area. So please, you need to add the community board in there as an interested party.
Thank you for that reminder. I did read this last night. I had a number of reports to prepare for this meeting, and yeah, I did notice that we hadn't specifically mentioned the community board in that space, but they will have the opportunity to participate in any public consultation process.
Okay, are there any other questions? No, so it's been moved by Deputy Mayor Murray Benge and seconded by Councillor Daly. Would you like to speak to it? Okay, I'm just going to say then that, I mean, for me, this makes sense, at least an initial look. You know, enables development, which is important for us, and potential housing, a childcare centre, which is obviously part of building a new town, and a better reserve, and the council might hopefully receive some compensation as well, which is always a welcome benefit. So I think I'm supportive of going out for consultation on this and progressing as we can. So that's me. Are there any other speakers for or against? No, so I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. So now moving to page 287, and that's the right to drain water and overland water easement over Mangawhai Estuary Esplanade Reserve in favour of council. So Peter, on for you.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. So this is I guess a statutory process that we need to go through as the landowner of the Esplanade Reserve that exists out there. And there's been a subdivision occur next door. It's been through the Resource Management Act process. It's been granted, and in order to, I guess, protect the interests of that landowner, of the developer, and also council in its capacity as the CCO that will inherit its stormwater drained, they will need a legal right to pass that water across the reserve land into the harbour. So it's just a statutory process working through to achieve that outcome. And the issues and options report kind of covers the various options that is available. So happy to take any questions on that.
Thank you, Peter. I think I've got to go with Councillor Dinsdale and.
Okay.
Do you want to repeat the question, Councillor?
Okay, sorry. Peter, are you able to tell me, do we have any other options other than to discharge directly into Tauranga Harbour?
I guess to answer that question, when we say charge directly, because the main stormwater catchment from the houses and the lots created and the roads created go into a holding bay with a stormwater pond, where it receives treatment and settlements out of carbons and silts and stuff. And then it'll trickle down to the harbour through there, because obviously all water is trying to find its way to the harbour, to the lowest point. Everything goes downhill to the sea. So that's something we've got to deal with in I guess the force of nature. But so we just manage that as best we can. So there's a approved stormwater pond that does all the treatment stuff, that meets all the consent requirements from Regional Council and Western Bay Council. And then we have some treatment and native plantings, etc., trying to manage that when it trickles down into the harbour. And yeah, so that's probably the best way I can answer that question.
I guess, are you able to help me to understand why is it the option to discharge to the harbour?
Because the stormwater generated off all the new roofs and services and stuff is unable to be held on the land. It needs to be treated, the volumes need to be treated through that stormwater pond and then overflow into the harbour. Because if they weren't there, it would find its way to the harbour anyway, through natural percolation across land.
I guess the problem for me, Peter, is that I understand mountains to the sea, but we're talking about rivers and creeks and the rest of it. Stormwater is man-made, correct?
No.
It's an effect of man-made activities.
No, stormwater results from a natural climatic condition frame coming from the sky. It's just what it hits and how it lands, how it gets managed Yeah, I agree. It's landing as it's, I think the point you're making is like rain happens, it's not man-made, rain happens. It's what the surface it lands on. If it lands on natural farmland, it'll still find its way down to a stream, to a river, to the ocean, and bring tannins and silt and stuff through that process naturally. But this landing on a developed site, and developed site has water catchment, drainage systems, stormwater systems, cesspits, all that are designed to try and take out the sediments before they reach the harbour. So doing best practice to try and avoid adding anything unnecessary into the harbour environments. So
Still not happy with the answer.
So
I think I'll wait
perhaps to
for some-
clarify, what would your alternative be? What would you consider being an alternative?
Well, I guess for me, I don't know what consultation has happened with iwi and hapu around this issue. And we are all aware with other issues that are happening in the harbour in terms of broken pipes and things. I just believe that the people would be offended by this action. And if we're able to find an alternative option, then can we explore it?
Yeah, so just to help clarify some of those queries from Councillor Dinsdale, one is Pirako was very heavily involved in this process through Julie Shepherd as their agent representative, through to Te Awanui. She's been involved with Te Awanui Waters subdivision for 10 odd years now and has worked very closely with them on that and would have been seen and approved and signed off on this process as well. So so they do have the opportunity to be involved in that.
When we were looking at this project, did we assess it against the Tauranga Harbour iwi management plan?
The developer, so it's not a council project, so we were responding to it. Says developers done this under our development code, and a development code is under our district plan and the regional coastal plan and land plan. So the Tauranga Harbour Moana plan, hapu plans from Piraka, etc., all feed into those processes and get consideration. Particularly in Mokoroa, there's actually part of our structure plan allows specific stuff for Piraka. It's not elsewhere in the district because of the intensification of the development that occurs in that urban environment. So it complies and there's got a resource consent under all of the requirements that they need under the law.
The Resource Management Act.
Correct.
A little bit different.
Councillor Daly.
Peter, I'm not wanting to counter anything Darlene is saying, but I'm just wondering if you could comment on the design of the stormwater pond and the rock mattress that the overflow will pass through before it enters the harbour. In terms of design, is this above and beyond usual designs, or is this par for the course for new subdivisions like this?
It's probably not appropriate for me. It's outside my lane, so to speak. I'm not a stormwater expert, but I do have an interest where it crosses the preserve about how we can ensure that in the future the community can pass and repass across here. And I am aware, just with general experience, is that a Gabion mattress of that kind, when having enough water on it, enables like inanga and stuff to slither up and come up and swim in the pond and type of thing. So they do have to meet that fish passage requirements, etc. So it'll comply with all the requirements of what's in our development codes and regional council plans.
I have to say that this report is a legal one. It's about an easement.
Correct.
It's not about stormwater per se. It's a legal matter. So I think we just need to bear that in mind. This is not about trying to redesign a stormwater system. It is about an easement. So just please bear that in mind. Councillor Joyce.
On a slightly different matter, you've talked about this being needed with the CCO coming up. What's the cost of doing these things and how many are we going to have to do? Because I mean, imagine there must be hundreds of I mean, stormwater ponds and stormwater management systems that involve reserves. If we're going to have to do several hundred, several thousand, I don't know, easements, if we have an idea, and it may be above your pay grade, I realise, Peter, but yeah, have we sort of thought about what this process is going to cost and where that cost will lie?
Are you talking about moving forward as we progress through with the CCO? So Adele will probably have a better answer for you than this, but essentially that is part of the work that's been done through the Local Waters Done Well process and transition process, is understanding what that implication will be. When you start looking at stormwater in particular, the complications around stormwater means that it's not that easy to just draw a line in the sand and determine where the costs lie. So it's probably the most complicated of all the work streams that need to be worked through. That's because each one of these stormwater ponds, each one of these stormwater facilities will need to be determined on a case-by-case basis and kind of attributed to. So it's a long way of saying, no, we do not just yet, but we will.
Great, okay. Councillor Darling?
Peter, in terms of the comment about the cycleway, the cycleway doesn't go that far at the moment, does it? It runs along the railway line. Is it proposed to extend the cycleway along this foreshore?
That's correct, and it will connect eventually to stage 2 of the TNL.
Okay. Councillor Elvin?
Just seeking some clarity about the nature of the easement, and it was a little unclear. Is it an overland flow of water, or is it going to be piped through? Because it's sort of a bit ambivalent. It looks as if it might be piped, but I was just trying to get some check on that. That's my first question, and my second question is a little off piece that the mayor's already commented on. But so, what is the proposal?
It does say overland, but perhaps you can clarify, Peter.
I guess the easement instrument will allow, effectively under Section 48 of the Reserves Act, for water to pass.
Yeah, I understand what an easement is.
Yeah, whether overland or piped. But in this case, I think this is, I'm looking at design, it's a Gabion mattress system overland.
Yeah, and I guess my question is whether it's appropriate in the circumstances to require it to be piped rather than interfere with the use of that area and probably add to the cost later of putting in a cycleway.
Brad?
Councillor, I can help with that. I think it's just important to remember, as His Worship has mentioned, that this is just a process, a legal process for the council to decide whether the easement is granted or not granted. Changes to the design need to be done through the consenting process and not necessarily through this process. We can't necessarily advocate for a change in design at this point.
With respect, Brad, it is a legal process because it's possible to specify in the easement that the conveyance of the water is required to be piped as other than an overland flow path. So that's my question.
But that's through the resource consent process, not the easement process. Would that be correct?
No, it's not. It's a provision in the easement which provides that any water will be piped.
Let's ask Peter if that's correct.
Yeah. So during the consent process, where the developer designed the pond and had the engineers look at it, came up with that option that was agreed by council's development engineers as an alternative or as a way of achieving that outcome. I do know, like, piping it too increases the velocity of the water. It takes away the exposure to sunlight, which helps, and it pretty much reduces the ability for inanga to have fish passage in a velocity of a high water pipe, because it's quite a steep. You can see the contours on there. It's quite a drop down there. So we believe that design, which has been put up by qualified engineers and then approved by our own engineers, is appropriate design. It's been agreed to by myself as a reserves and facilities manager. And we can deal with how we get across that. There are similar ones along this Harbour Ridge as well, and Te Awanui Waters and other places.
I think that's helpful. Just as an additional, does this stormwater pond, and it's off piste, and I acknowledge that, Mr. Mayor, is that ponding capable of receiving the water from an adjoining subdivision as well. So this doesn't have to be duplicated in the next door neighbours if the next door neighbour decides to subdivide.
My understanding of that is, not being a stormwater engineer, is that there are stormwater catchment calculations done and that this pond meets that requirement plus some capacity to deal with that going forward.
Thanks very much.
Okay, well, I think we need to get to the recommendations. So there's recommendation 1, 2, 3. We could do 4 or 5. So I'm happy to move 1, 2, 3, and 5. Is there a seconder, please? Deputy Mayor Murray Benge. I think we've probably debated it a fair bit. Does anyone want to say anything further? No? Okay, in which case I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Right, moving on to item 10.10 on page 294, which is the exercise of delegation by our interim CA during the interregnum period. So, is there anything you wish to say, Miriam?
Nothing too detailed, Your Worship, except I'm required to list those decisions made under my delegation during that period. So they are listed there, the 5 of them. There's nothing really, and I need to really explain on those. That's sort of standard things that come up. Nothing in there is to do with large financial transactions, like significant financial transactions.
Okay. Do you not have any queries they wish to?
Happy to move, sir.
Okay. Are you seconding, Councillor Coxhead? Okay. Any debate on this further? No, in which case I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Right. Item 10.11, the governance, council governance structure and committees and appointments of chairs and deputies. We're on page 298, and please also note the tabled item for recommendation 4. There are a couple of other points I just want to mention, which were unclear or omitted in the document in front of you. Firstly, the Regional Deals Governance Group is not actually a joint committee; it's just an advisory group, and also that having spoken to Chair James Sayre and Member Anne Henry of Katikati Community Board, I propose that those be the 2 members appointed to Te Ohu Waiora alongside Councillor Joyce. So that's those minor clarifications or additions. Are there any questions at this point? No? Happy to move. Councillor Deputy Mayor Murray Benge. I'm happy to second. Any further debate on this one? No?
Just a request to the Deputy Mayor that when she's working on the CCTV policy, to make sure that you get my good side.
Okay. In which case, I'll put the motion. There's a recommendations 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Now, moving on. Almost there. Page 321, item 10.12. It's the councillor remuneration for this triennium. Any questions on this one? No? Well, ahead of myself here. Deputy Mayor.
Sir, it's outside our brief, so we can ask questions, but there's not much point because it's decided by Wellington, and I think our job is to accept it.
Yeah, I think, I mean, what I would say is my pay and the pool for the rest of you is determined by an independent remuneration authority. And we decide how it's divvied up, but we don't decide the overall pay, and nor can we elect not to receive any of it. So it's pretty straightforward from that point of view. And the minimum amount is to ensure equitable pay for all councillors. And it's that's the purpose of that.
I just pointed out we're getting paid about half what a town city councillor gets paid. So it's good value for money.
Great. Okay. Thank you, Councillor Joyce. So, Councillor Daly?
James, can you explain why it does seem such a large increase compared to the previous one as a result of the representation review?
There's two main reasons for that. Firstly, that the pool size was increased significantly by the Remuneration Authority. Again, we had no choice in that. And secondly, we have reduced the number of councillors, which means the pool gets shared out between fewer people, and that will augment the existing increase.
So we had 12 councillors, now we've got 10 councillors.
That's correct,
including a Māori ward, which we didn't have before.
That's right. It's 12 down to 10. The Māori ward is not relevant for this. Yeah. Okay. Would someone like to move and second those recommendations, please? Deputy Mayor Murray Benge, Councillor Daly. I assume we don't want to further debate it. So I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Right. So now on to my report, which is on page 323, and happy to accept any questions you may have on this one. Councillor Coxhead.
There's a couple of things here, James. One was the Code of Conduct Stakeholder Group.
Yep.
I'd be interested, there's two meetings for that. I'd be interested in what was sort of covered there, given what I've read about the proposed Code of Conduct being put out by for submission from the Local Government Commission. And the other one was the Mayor's School in Wellington. So what's Mayor's School and who runs that?
Okay, so with start with the first question, so Code of Conduct. So there are a number of aspects that have been worked through, and in fact, there was a meeting, the last meeting last week, and that was to refine the proposals, which are going to go out any day now, basically. And I think the latest information that I have, or that we discussed, was that it will no longer, members of the public will no longer be able to do it. That was an initial idea that came up.
You mean take a Code of Conduct
Yes,
complaint?
that's
and staff?
I can't remember where it landed on that. I haven't seen the final version. We were debating a few finer points.
And the 4 points in relation to Te Tiriti?
That was not something that I've discussed with them.
So that wasn't discussed on the call?
Not on this latest one, no.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Because it's a sequential process. So we're not debating the whole thing every time. Yeah. Yeah. But we'll just stress this is a recommendation or proposal to the minister, and the minister has the final say.
Who's running those sessions?
The Local Government Commission.
Okay, cool.
Mayor's School, sorry, yes. So that's basically all the mayors in the country go and basically learn how to be a mayor, and it's to meet each other, which is very important. And yeah, it was a very informative and useful session for me.
The government?
It's run by LGNZ.
Oh, okay. So we're no longer members?
Yep, you don't have to be a member to attend it.
So we just pay?
Yep.
What does the cost? What was the cost of that?
I'd have to get back to you on that.
Yeah, please do. Yeah.
Cool. Deputy Mayor Murray Benge.
I just want to comment on the Code of Conduct. What I've seen so far, I think it's a dog of a document, and I do hope, sir, that you are really determined to make sure that you protect your councillors. But when I read it, I thought I'll need a lawyer beside me before I actually open my mouth. And I just think it's deplorable. I even wrote to the minister to complain about it. And so why be told when that Code of Conduct comes to us? Because you'll need to understand it really carefully. I'm pleased that you've got outsiders can't have a go, and staff can't have a go, but it's I just think it's so undemocratic and an absolute dog of a document. So I keep my options open, but I show you my bias before I even see it.
Thank you. There was another change, what I recall it, and that is that in the first draft, there was members of the public to make a complaint, and every complaint had to go to an independent investigator, which would be immediate significant cost for council. Both of those have been taken out now, so it's suggested an assessor rather than investigator, which could be, well, it could be in-house, but there's options and it's not going to be automatically an external lawyer. Councillor Elvin, then Councillor Joyce.
I guess I'd just like to open by saying, you know, I'm offended by the fact that we're getting mandated a code of conduct by head office. I think we're more than capable of doing our own, and you know, the central government got enough to worry about without interfering in our business. And the second thing is, have we got a draft copy of that we can review? I think the success of a code of conduct is that everybody who's involved in it is at least cognizant of what's in there, has got some feedback on it. And thirdly, if you're relying on a former broken down lawyer in this office, in this room, to give you any help, Margaret, I suggest you go somewhere else, because I don't think I'm going to be much help in that space.
Yeah, so the earlier draft is available publicly, although I would suggest it's not that helpful to look at it, given it's just changed. And then there's a draft being worked up now, which I'm sure will be, get a copy at some point. Yeah. Yeah. Councillor Joyce.
Bearing in mind the great deal of interest from members, what measures did you take to ensure that you had input from your council for the code of conduct stakeholder group?
So that every council, you're all invited to join that panel, and I mean, it was I mean, everyone had the opportunity.
Okay. There was something else reported to have been in there, so please correct me if I'm wrong, that an investigator would also decide the punishment if someone was found to be in breach of the code. Is that still in there? That seems a bit weird because it's prosecutor.
I think it might be a recommendation, but I'd have to check. These things are fluid. That was certainly something else that was being tweaked or worked on.
It would be good, because I don't believe a prosecutor should be the person who decides the punishment. I would have thought this body would decide the punishment of its members. Completely different front. Tapawika reps regarding Te Puke wastewater issues. I realise that's a bit of a big issue, but it would be a good idea, seeing as both you and the CEO were there, to get an idea of what happened there and what updates you've got for us, please.
So fundamentally, that one is about seeking a resolution to the discharge to the YRE reconsenting, and so with that, we discussed the process we did for Katikati and Te Ohu Waiora, and we suggested that was a good process, and that they could follow. We could follow a similar process for them, and that, you know, invited them to talk to our colleagues in the West about, or iwi in the West, about how that went and how they felt about that. But just restarting that process and seeking a discharge solution.
Again, probably straying into projects and monitoring, but I'm guessing this will be something will be an ongoing report.
Oh yeah, no, there's some, that's right. Councillor Coxhead.
It's gone on the Local Government Commission website, and they have not updated the draft with any amendments. So
no, I think it's coming in a few days.
So it'll come through email to you or on the website?
I presume so.
Yeah, can we please keep abreast of that? Be kept abreast of that. That's probably one of the most important things for me anyway.
Okay.
This term.
Okay. Deputy Mayor.
Yes, could I just ask, follow on from that code of conduct? When it comes back to us as a code of conduct, we can alter it at that point? We don't have to accept it?
I believe it's mandatory, and it's probably not able to be changed.
Blimey.
But no, let's wait and see. I can't speak for the minister. Sorry, it was any other questions? Councillor Daly.
Just out of interest, really, but was that by application, the Code of Conduct Stakeholder Group, or were you invited to?
We were all invited to. The email went to elected members.
So it's
Not
just,
from me, from the.
just
local-
anyone who turns up on the day to
No,
discuss it.
no, it wasn't that. It was those who expressed an interest were invited to participate in these online meetings.
Oh, okay.
Could you just update them so they've got my email?
I mean, this was in the last term, so yeah, I think it's right. It's the date's in there, but it was in the previous training. Yeah. Okay.
Can I also just, in terms of the regional deal updates, I see that you've been involved all the way through the interregnum and the post-election, but we've really only been brought in just recently. But I'm just wondering, I guess you've got to have someone, but I mean, we weren't sworn in for quite a period, and we were discouraged from participating in any sort of governance activity in the 2 months before the election.
Yeah, it's not us setting the timetable, it's the government. So what I will say is that you do have weekly updates, and there's one this Friday, and it's likely to come back to council for an approval in principle on the 16th.
And I guess since we're on public record, at what point will sort of more information be available for the public about the regional deals?
I don't know the answer to that. I don't know if the 16th will be in public or not. Probably not, because it's before cabinet, but I don't know.
That will be determined by the government. They're setting the time frame. I think the meeting on the 16th, we've only just talked about it possibly happening on the 16th. I think there's also a 6-week process that the government needs to go through, and there's only so many days that the House is sitting before the end of the year. So there'll probably be something on the 16th for the elected members, and then there'll be something announced in the new year, because we've got a process, they've got a process they have to go through. That's what I'm aware of.
Okay.
The communications are controlled from central government.
Okay, any other questions on my report? Oh, Councillor Cox.
Sorry, just to your comment then, Miriam, so there's no way that you can just give us an update? I don't mean now.
Well, there's an update on Friday, so.
Oh, okay.
There's an
Yeah.
update to everyone on Friday, and you'll all be given exactly the same information across all the councils. So I think it's pretty.
So it's dictated by the government what you can tell us?
Well, our negotiator gives us feedback, but it's pretty much the same messaging. So you're pretty much up to date. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm happy to move my recommendation. Is there a seconder for that, please? Councillor Sol. I think you just picked over, Alan. In which this assumes no more debate, so I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Just a moment. So we're now looking to a resolution to exclude the public for our confidential session. So Deputy Mayor Murray Binge, Councillor Joyce, all in favour, please say aye.